You ever get that flash of a brilliant app idea, but then the thought of actually building it, all the coding, all the setup, it just feels exhausting? Well, today we're diving into a really cool concept called the Fractal Platform, and it promises to change all that, letting you build at the speed of thought. Let's see how it actually works.
So here's our game plan. We'll start by talking about the app building grind we all know. Then, we'll get into a new way of thinking with smart bricks. After that, we'll uncover the magic of dimensions, look at the 3 simple layers that make up the architecture, see what kind of real-world apps you can build, and finally, peek into the future of building software.
All right, let's kick things off by setting the stage. Why is it that building software, even something that sounds pretty simple on paper, often turns into such a slow, repetitive chore?
I mean, it's a question every single developer has asked themselves at some point, right? You have this great, straightforward idea, maybe a to-do list or a simple tracker for a hobby, but getting from that idea to a working app is just full of these hurdles that have absolutely nothing to do with your actual core concept.
And this right here, this is the heart of the problem. You spend so much of your precious time on all this tedious stuff. You're writing the same boilerplate code over and over again for every new project. You're manually making sure what the user sees on the screen actually matches the data in the backend. You're hand-coding validation rules like, hey, this field can't be empty, or that has to be a valid email. And you're building out security and permissions from scratch, all before you even get to the fun part, the stuff that makes your app special.
So, the Fractal Platform comes along and proposes a pretty radical shift to solve this. What if, instead of coding every single tiny detail by hand, you could just describe what you want your app to do?
This analogy just hits the nail on the head. The old way, it's like you're a sculptor with a block of wood. Yeah, you have total control, but it's incredibly slow. Every detail is manual, and making changes is a huge pain. This new way is more like building with intelligent Legos. You don't have to carve the brick yourself. You just say, I need a red 2x4 brick right here, and it just snaps into place, already knowing exactly how to connect to all the other pieces around it.
Now, the fancy term for this is a declarative approach. You just focus on the what, the end result you want. You say, this field should be a date, it has to be filled out, and only admins can touch it. You don't write the code for the pop-up calendar, the error message, or the security check. You just state the rules, and the system takes care of the how. It's a total game changer.
So you're probably wondering, how does this actually work? What's the secret sauce? Well, those smart bricks we were talking about, they're called dimensions, and they are the absolute core of how this all comes together.
Think of dimensions as superpowers you can just attach to your data. They're basically metadata, data about your data, that tell the platform how a piece of information should look, how it should behave, and who's allowed to see it, all without you writing endless lines of traditional code.
Okay, for example, let's take the UI dimension. This thing is amazing. Let's say you have a data field called avatar. Instead of coding a whole front-end component, you just tell the UI dimension its control type is picture. And boom, the platform automatically generates a picture upload and display for you, just like that.
Then you've got the validation dimension. Say you have a username field. You can just declare, okay, this is required. It needs to be between 3 and 16 characters, and it has to be unique. The platform now enforces those rules everywhere, on the user interface and at the database level, automatically. No more writing a bunch of custom validation logic.
And security works the exact same way. This is a huge one. Instead of writing all this complex, if this user, then that logic, you just attach a simple rule. You can declare that the new topic button is disallowed for the guest role. That's it. The system automatically hides that button for anyone who isn't logged in. It's such a simple declaration for a supercritical task.
Okay, so with this idea of dimensions in our back pocket, we can now zoom out a little and see how an entire application is structured. And you'll see it's actually beautifully simple, built on just 3 core layers.
The whole architecture really boils down to this clean separation of concerns. First, you have the database layer. This is where you define what your data is and how it behaves using all those dimensions we just talked about. Second, there's the application layer, which defines when things happen. This is your actual business logic. And finally, you have the layouts layer, which defines the look, giving you full control over the final look and feel.
All right, this all sounds great in theory, right? But the real question is, what can you actually build with this? Is it just for simple stuff? Well, no. This whole approach is designed to be incredibly versatile. You can totally start with the basics, like a classic to-do list.
But the exact same principles scale up beautifully to build something way more complex, like a social network with profiles, articles, and comments. You could create a learning app that tracks a student's progress, or a tool that plugs into other services to pull in live data, like a crypto tracker. The foundation is the same, whether the app is simple or a beast.
So, let's bring it all home. What does this shift from a coding everything mindset to a describing everything mindset really mean for anyone out there who wants to create software?
Well, here's what it all means. It means you build way faster, because you're just not doing all that repetitive work anymore. The entire process is simplified, because describing a rule is just fundamentally easier than coding it from the ground up. But the most important thing is, it frees up your mind to focus on what actually makes your app special and unique, that core idea you were so excited about in the first place.
I mean, just think about this number for a second. What if you could eliminate up to 90% of the boilerplate code? All that setup, the wiring, the validation. What would that unlock for you? That's 90% more of your time and energy that you can pour into innovation, into polishing your core idea, and into delivering something truly valuable.
And that really brings us to the final question. By changing our focus from the nitty-gritty how to the big picture what, we get so much closer to a world where our technology is no longer the bottleneck for our ideas. So you have to ask yourself, what could you create if you could truly build at the speed of thought?